The train wasn't on any map. Elias Vorn knew that because he had helped erase it. Yet here it was, sliding silently into an abandoned platform that hadn't existed for 30 years. No lights. No passengers. No destination code. Then the doors opened. And standing inside the empty car was a woman with copper-scaled skin, eyes like burning constellations, and the calm certainty of someone who had been waiting a very long time. She looked at him and said softly, "You finally found the train that remembers you." That was the moment Elias realized two impossible things at once. He was not alone in the universe. And the woman he was about to fall in love with did not exist in his world. The signal should not have existed. Elias Vorn stared at the diagnostic pane hovering above his wrist, watching the same corrupted pulse repeat itself with stubborn precision. Platform 9 Theta had been erased from every transit registry 3 decades ago. Elias knew, because he had signed off on the deletion himself. Dead systems did not call for maintenance. Yet the signal kept whispering through the void, rhythmic and patient, like something breathing in the dark. Against protocol and reason, Elias rerouted his skimmer toward the abandoned orbital ring, telling himself curiosity was not the same as hope. The platform floated like a forgotten scar above the planet, lights flickering weakly through layers of dust and neglect. Elias docked, boots echoing as he stepped onto metal that hadn't felt a human presence in years. Old announcement speakers crackled without sound. Time felt wrong here, stretched thin, as if the place remembered being busy and resented the silence. His neural implant hummed uneasily. "Just ghosts," Elias muttered, though the word tasted heavier than it should have. Then the rails vibrated. A low, resonant hum rolled through the platform, deep enough to be felt in bone rather than ear. Elias turned just as a train phased into existence, not arriving so much as resolving, metal and light knitting themselves together from nothing. It bore no insignia, no destination code, only smooth, dark surfaces that reflected the station lights like still water. The ghost line, whispered about in dismissed reports and half-deleted archives, stood solid before him. Elias froze, every lesson screaming that this was impossible. The doors slid open without sound. Warm light spilled onto the platform, carrying a scent Elias couldn't place, ozone mixed with something organic, almost alive. He stepped inside before he fully decided to, drawn by a pull that felt older than logic. The interior was neither ancient nor modern, but balanced between, walls curving gently as if grown rather than built. The hum shifted pitch, syncing with his heartbeat. For a moment, Elias wondered if he was already dead and simply hadn't noticed. She stood at the far end of the car. Tall, composed, unmistakably not human. Copper-scaled skin caught the light in soft gradients, and faint, elegant horns curved back through dark hair threaded with metallic strands. Her eyes reflected the interior like distant galaxies, alert and startled in equal measure. She took one cautious step back, mirroring Elias's own instinctive retreat. They stared at each other across the silent car, two errors in realities that should never have overlapped. "You can see me," she said, voice calm but edged with disbelief. "I was about to say the same thing," Elias replied. His implant struggled, then adapted, translating cadence and meaning rather than words. "Who are you?" She studied him with careful intensity. "Karen. And you are somewhere you should not be. That makes two of us." Elias swallowed, forcing his voice steady. "This train, it shouldn't be running." "It isn't," Karen answered. "Not in the way you understand machines." She gestured subtly, and the air around them shimmered, revealing faint images layered over the walls, cities of crystal and living stone, skies split by auroras. "This vessel carries memory. It travels where memory resonates strongly enough to answer." Elias's mind raced. "You're saying it responds to emotion?" "Yes." Her gaze sharpened. "And it is responding to you." The train lurched gently, not accelerating but sliding sideways through sensation rather than space. Elias gripped a railing as fragments of unfamiliar feelings brushed his consciousness, regret, longing, curiosity not his own. Karen steadied herself, one hand resting against the wall as if calming a living creature. "The bridge is unstable," she said quietly. "It should not have opened fully." "Why did it?" Elias asked. Karen hesitated, then met his eyes. Because you remember something your world chose to forget. Elias felt a hollow ache bloom in his chest, an echo of loss he rarely allowed himself to examine. His sister's face flickered unbidden through his thoughts, gone during early dimensional research officially labeled a containment failure. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends," Karen said, stepping closer. The hum softened, responding to the narrowing distance. "If your people discover this connection, they will try to destroy it. Fear drives them, as it once drove mine." "And you?" Elias asked. Karen's expression shifted, something vulnerable passing beneath her composure. "In my universe, humans never survived convergence. You are not supposed to exist. Loving you would be forbidden." The word landed harder than any threat. Elias looked around the impossible car, then back at her. "Yet here we are." "Yes," she agreed softly. "And that is the danger." The train began to fade, edges blurring as if reality itself were losing patience. Karen stepped back, regret clear in her eyes. "You must leave. The longer we remain, the more notice this draws." "How do I find you again?" Elias asked, urgency breaking through restraint. Karen paused, then touched the wall. "Remember," she said simply. The doors opened behind him, spilling cold platform air into the warmth. As Elias stumbled back onto the station, the train dissolved into light, leaving only silence and the echo of a heartbeat not entirely his own. He stood alone once more, staring at empty rails, knowing with absolute certainty that nothing in his world would ever feel solid again. Elias did not report the encounter. He erased the sensor logs, scrubbed his neural trace, and filed a routine maintenance closure that no one would ever read. The Directorate trusted numbers more than people, and numbers now said nothing unusual had occurred at Platform 9 Theta. Yet the silence felt dishonest. Something had changed, not in the system, but in him. The universe no longer felt empty. It felt watched. For 3 days he tried to convince himself the ghost train had been a stress-induced hallucination, a memory glitch layered over grief and isolation. On the 4th day, the signal returned, fainter this time, like a held breath. Elias did not hesitate. He rerouted again, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation that felt dangerously close to hope. The platform welcomed him with the same flickering lights, but the air felt warmer, expectant. The rails hummed before the train appeared, materializing with greater difficulty, its edges less defined. Elias stepped inside, and the interior stabilized as if relieved. Karen stood near the center of the car, posture rigid, eyes fixed on him. "You came back," she said. "I didn't know if I could," Elias admitted. "But I couldn't not try." Her shoulders eased, just slightly. "Then the bridge is stronger than I feared." They stood closer now, the train responding to their proximity. The hum deepened, smoothing into a steady resonance that wrapped around them like a pulse. Karen gestured for him to sit, and the surface of the floor reshaped itself into a bench. Elias watched in quiet awe. "This place isn't built," he said. "It's listening." "Yes," Karen replied. "Memory responds to attention. Emotion gives it form." Elias frowned thoughtfully. "In my world, emotion is considered noise in a system. Something to filter out." "In mine," Karen said, "it is the foundation of civilization." She explained that the Draconids did not consume food as humans did. Their sustenance came from resonance, shared experiences, preserved memories, emotional continuity passed across generations. Cities were grown from living frameworks that responded to collective feeling. History was not recorded, it was felt. "And humans?" Karen asked. Elias hesitated. "We record everything," he said. "But we don't always feel it. Loss gets archived. Pain becomes data." Karen studied him, then reached out, stopping just short of touching his hand. The air between their fingers shimmered faintly. "That restraint," she said quietly, "is why this bridge struggles. You suppress what gives you strength." They experimented cautiously. Karen taught Elias how to project memories without losing himself, guiding his neural interface to open rather than shield. He shared a childhood moment, standing beside his sister on a shoreline that no longer existed, waves breaking at their feet. Karen inhaled sharply as the memory flowed into her, eyes bright with reflected emotion. "So vivid," she whispered. "Your species feels deeply, even when it pretends not to." In return, she shared her own memory. Soaring above a city grown from luminous stone, wings spread wide, laughter echoing through warm air. Elias felt weightless, exhilarated, then grounded by a sudden ache of longing that wasn't entirely his. They pulled back instinctively, the train shuddering as if startled. "We must be careful," Karen said. "Too much resonance draws attention." "From your people?" Elias asked. "And yours," she replied. Time lost meaning aboard the ghost train. Minutes slipped into hours unnoticed, conversations flowing from curiosity to intimacy. They spoke of fear, of duty, of loneliness shaped by responsibility. Elias confessed his sister's disappearance, the way guilt clung to him like static. Karen listened without interruption, absorbing not just words but the weight behind them. "In my world," she said gently, "we believe love alters probability. That is why it is regulated." Elias laughed softly. "In mine, we pretend it doesn't exist at all." The train dimmed abruptly, the hum faltering. Karen stiffened. "They are watching now," she said. "Both sides." Elias's implant pinged sharply, Directorate security algorithms brushing against his concealed signal. "I can hide us," he said, fingers flying across invisible controls, rerouting emotional output instead of power flow as Karen guided him. The train steadied, barely. Karen met his gaze, conflict clear in her expression. "You should not risk this. Loving me places your world in danger." Elias shook his head. "I don't know what this is yet," he said honestly. "But I know it matters." She stepped closer, close enough that Elias could feel warmth radiating from her skin, sense the hum synchronizing with both their heartbeats. "In my universe," Karen said, voice trembling for the first time, "humans were erased from existence during a failed convergence. You were deemed too volatile to coexist." "And now?" Elias asked. "Now," she said softly, "you are rewriting that judgment." The train began to fade again, instability creeping in. Karen stepped back reluctantly. "We cannot meet for a while. The bridge must cool, or it will collapse." "When?" Elias asked. "When you remember me strongly enough," she replied. The doors opened, and Elias stepped onto the platform, the cold rushing back as the warmth vanished. The train dissolved, leaving silence and echoes. As Elias stood there, heart racing, a Directorate alert flashed across his vision. "Anomalous dimensional activity detected. Directorate oversight initiated." Elias closed his eyes, knowing the fragile world he had discovered was already under threat. The summons arrived less than an hour later. Elias was still seated on a maintenance crate when the Directorate beacon locked onto his neural implant, overriding every personal filter he had left intact. A calm, synthetic voice issued a single instruction: report immediately. Non-compliance will be interpreted as hostile intent. There was no anger in the tone, no threat. That was what made it frightening. Elias exhaled slowly and stood. The bridge had not cooled. It had been noticed. The interrogation chamber was sterile to the point of hostility. Smooth walls, neutral lighting, no reflective surfaces. Elias recognized the design philosophy immediately. Nothing in the room was allowed to echo emotion. Director Havek Rune stood waiting, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the transparent display suspended between them. Streams of data scrolled silently. Energy spikes, probability distortions, resonance patterns that Elias alone understood the cause of. "You falsified records," Havek said without preamble. "You rerouted classified diagnostics. You accessed a decommissioned platform repeatedly." His gaze finally lifted. "Tell me why." Elias chose his words carefully. "Because something survived the shutdown." Havek's expression did not change. "Nothing survives a probability collapse." "Someone did," Elias replied. The display shifted. A partial waveform appeared, Unstable but unmistakable. Karen's presence translated into math. Havek studied it for a long moment. Sentient, he concluded. Non-human. Cross-dimensional. Yes. Havek turned the display off. Then you understand the risk. Elias felt heat rise in his chest. I understand the cost of ignorance, he said. We didn't just find a phenomenon. We found a civilization. Havek stepped closer. We found a breach, he said quietly. And breaches spread. He activated another file. Images flickered into view, colonies lost, ships folded into nothing, entire research stations erased during early dimensional probing. Every disaster humanity has suffered beyond its home system, Havek said, came from assuming the universe would tolerate our curiosity. Elias stared at the images, recognizing some from sealed archives. So we destroy what we don't understand. We contain it, Havek corrected. We survive. And if containment kills them? Elias asked. Havek met his gaze. Then we mourn privately and move on. Survival does not allow sentimentality. The word struck harder than any accusation. Elias clenched his fists. She's not a weapon, he said. She's a person. Havek paused, studying him. Ah, he said softly. There it is. Elias felt exposed. What? Attachment, Havek replied. The most predictable vulnerability. Across reality, Karen stood before her council beneath a vaulted chamber grown from living crystal. Elders ringed the space, their wings folded in rigid formality, eyes glowing with restrained alarm. The resonance around her trembled with collective unease. You have confirmed it, the first elder said. The anomaly is human. Yes, Karen answered. Mankind destabilized convergence once before, another elder said. Their emotions fracture probability. They also heal it, Karen replied, lifting her chin. I felt it. A ripple of disapproval passed through the chamber. Feeling is not evidence, the first elder said. Your bond endangers us all. Karen's wings twitched. Our laws were written to prevent fear from ruling us, she said. Yet now you ask me to sever a connection because it frightens you. Silence followed. Then the verdict came. You will withdraw, the first elder declared. The bridge must collapse naturally. Your attachment will end. Karen's voice shook, but her resolve did not. No. Back in the directorate chamber, Havek's assistant entered quietly. Director, she said, collapse device primed. We can sever the bridge within 12 hours. Havek nodded. Do it. Elias stepped forward. If you collapse it, he said urgently, you won't just close a door. You'll annihilate everything on the other side that depends on it. Havek's gaze hardened. You're assuming dependency. I'm certain of it, Elias replied. The bridge stabilizes through resonance. Through connection. Havek tilted his head. You're saying love is holding a universe together. Yes, Elias said. And we're about to tear it apart. Havek considered him for a long moment. You know, he said, every generation believes it has found the exception, the one risk worth taking. And sometimes, Elias said quietly, they're right. Havek turned away. You're relieved of duty. Security will escort you. The lights flickered. Alarms surged through the facility as the dimensional readouts spiked violently. The bridge was destabilizing faster than projected. Havek snapped back to the display. What's happening? Elias felt it instantly, a tearing sensation in his chest, like something vital being pulled away. She refused, he whispered. They're forcing the separation. Across the ghost line, Karen staggered as the train materialized without Elias, its structure warping, memories bleeding into raw chaos. The bridge screamed, not audibly, but emotionally, sending shockwaves through both realities. The assistant turned pale. Director, if this collapses uncontrolled. It will cascade, Havek finished grimly. Elias looked up, eyes burning with determination. "There's still time," he said. "Let me go back." Havok hesitated, the first crack in his certainty. Outside the chamber, the ghost train phased into existence above Platform 9 Theta, unstable, luminous, and dying. Karen stood alone inside, wings unfurled, waiting. And the countdown began. The ghost train screamed as Elias boarded it. Not with sound, but with raw sensation. Grief, strain, longing collapsing into a single overwhelming pressure that slammed into his consciousness the moment his boots crossed the threshold. The car shuddered, walls flickering between solidity and translucent memory. Elias staggered, catching himself against a rail that pulsed like a living vein. "Karen!" he called. She stood near the center of the car, wings spread wide, copper scales dulled by instability. Fine fractures of light ran through the air around her, snapping and reforming with every breath she took. When she saw him, shock flashed across her face, quickly chased by fear. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "The bridge is tearing itself apart." "So is everything else," Elias replied, forcing himself upright. "I couldn't let it end like this." The train lurched violently. Outside the windows, reality blurred, stars folding inward, fragments of both universes bleeding together in distorted echoes. Elias's implant screamed warnings as Directorate countdown data overlaid his vision. T-4 minutes to forced collapse. Karen stepped toward him, then stopped, pain tightening her features. "If the collapse activates while you're here." "I know," Elias said. "But I also know something Havok doesn't." He moved past her, hands already working through the interface projected from his implant, fingers trembling not with fear but urgency. "The collapse device isn't failing," he said. "It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, erase instability. The problem is what it defines as instability." Karen stared at him. "Emotion." "Yes." Elias swallowed. "Specifically, unregulated emotional resonance." The train bucked again, lights dimming. Karen grabbed a support, wings folding reflexively. "Elias, my world will not survive a collapse. The resonance feeds our cities, our memory chains, everything." "I know," he said softly. "That's why I'm changing the equation." In the Directorate control chamber, Havok watched the data spiral out of control. "He's interfacing with the collapse core," an analyst said sharply. "Unauthorized neural access." "Cut the feed," Havok ordered. "We can't," another voice replied. "The system is adapting." Havok leaned closer to the display as unfamiliar parameters appeared: empathy coefficients, coherence curves, emotional amplitude translated into structured waveform. "What is he doing?" he demanded. Inside the ghost train, Elias closed his eyes. He stopped fighting the flood of sensation and let it in. Memories surged. His sister laughing on a sunlit shore, the ache of loss he had buried under procedure and silence. Karen's memories followed, unbidden. Flight through warm skies, the shared resonance of her people, the quiet certainty that love was not weakness but continuity. The train responded instantly, its violent shudder smoothing into a strained but stable hum. "Elias," Karen whispered. "You're anchoring it with yourself." He nodded, breath unsteady. "The collapse device uses fear as a stabilizing constant," he said. "I'm replacing it." The implant burned as Elias rewrote core directives, feeding the system not suppression algorithms but structured emotional coherence, empathy mapped, balanced, shared. The bridge responded, fractures sealing as resonance synchronized instead of clashed. In the control chamber, alarms died mid-wail. The cascade stopped. Silence fell as the reading stabilized, impossible values settling into steady lines. An analyst stared at the display, voice barely audible. "Director, the bridge isn't collapsing." Havok said nothing, eyes locked on the data. For the first time in decades, uncertainty flickered across his face. "Explain." "It's self-stabilizing," the analyst said. "Powered by emotional symmetry." Havok exhaled slowly. He turned compassion into infrastructure. Back on the train, Elias dropped to one knee, gasping. The hum softened, warm and steady now. Karen rushed to his side, catching him before he fell completely. "You did it," she said, disbelief and awe threading her voice. "We did," Elias corrected. He looked up at her, vision blurring. "I don't know what this makes me now." Karen hesitated, then gently placed her hand over his. This time, reality did not recoil. For a single, fragile moment, they touched. The sensation was quiet, profound, not an explosion, but a certainty settling into place. The train glowed softly around them, memory and presence aligned at last. Elias laughed weakly. "Guess that answers the question." Karen smiled, tears bright against copper skin. "You have changed both our worlds." In the aftermath, protocols rewrote themselves. The Directorate reclassified the Ghost Line, not as a threat, but as a corridor. Human scientists struggled to explain why empathy-based stabilization worked, while Draconid scholars re-evaluated centuries of law built on fear of volatility. Havek stood alone in the observation chamber long after the crisis ended. When Elias was finally cleared from medical stasis, Havek visited him once, expression unreadable. "You were right," the director said. "Survival isn't enough." Elias met his gaze calmly. It never was. Elias could not fully return home. His neural pattern remained partially entangled with the bridge, a living anchor ensuring balance. He accepted the role without ceremony. Some connections were worth the cost. The ghost train still ran, quietly, steadily, no longer a myth, but a promise. And in two universes that had once chosen fear, humanity would be remembered not as conquerors or anomalies, but as the species that proved love could hold reality together.